because one of maybe the most successful band of all time, the Beatles and John Lennon, people don't really realize how dark those guys were as well.
Yeah, throughout the 60s, right? You have Jim Morrison saying he got in touch with the spirit of music, Satan. You have Simply from the Devil and the Stones, promoting Aleister Crowley, their satanic majesty's requests and so forth. And we could just go through the 60s, which we do in our video expose. But you have
Rock stars are supposed to give shock value. If you take a marketing 101 course, you'll understand what the value that shock actually has. Especially in a, for the most part, at least maybe not so much nowadays, but back then, a modest society. Right? Nowadays, you can have, furries running around on the street and people peeing on each other during pride parades and no one bats an eye. Right? That wouldn't have been able to happen back in, the 60s or whatever. So a modest country that, yes, while things, unsavory things happen behind closed doors, it's not out in public. So when people do it in public, it gets tongues wagging. Right? People talk. You get the views, even though it wasn't on social media, it was on TV. You get the views, you get the album sales, you get the radio listens. Right? Take a basic marketing course. Go on YouTube, type in the basics of marketing and watch an hour-long video or something like that. I promise you, you will understand how these people used the occult symbolism and all this other stuff to make themselves famous. And most of the time it wasn't even them, it wasn't even the celebrity choosing to do this, it was their team, their managers, their agents, right? The people behind them who invested money, the studios, the labels who invested money into them and want that return, right? They understand that a lot of people believe nonsense like this, so why not play into that? That's a whole market that will, they might not buy the song, but this isn't the 70s anymore. This is 2024. So as long as they type, our artist name into YouTube, our artist name into Twitter, our artist name into Google, our artist name into TikTok, and hit that and press enter or press search, and just start watching content about this person, it keeps their name relevant. And so the people who do want to buy their music will find it. They'll hear it. The people who do want to stream their songs, the people who do want to attend their concerts, right? Just remove the social media aspect of it if we're going to go back to the 60s and talk about the Beatles and stuff like that. Same thing. Marketing, not the devil. Craziness.
you have John Lennon, the leader of the most popular band of all times. Basically, Chad, from his youth, feeling he was in touch with spirits, saying that as he was a musician, that when he wrote songs, he said, I felt like a psychic, a medium, that I was possessed. He said he was like a hollow temple. One spirit would come into him, and then that spirit would leave his body. Then another spirit would come into him, possess his body, then that spirit would leave. And it's interesting when you look at what he was about. I mean, he called Jesus a fascist, bastard. He blasphemed the Lord Jesus Christ, said we're more popular than Jesus now, we'll be proven right. The Christianity will vanish, but we'll still be here. And it's interesting, Chad, because he said the whole Beatle philosophy, he quoted Aleister Crowley, the Satanist, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. He said in an interview before he died, the whole Beatle philosophy was do what thou willst. And it's interesting because, Chad, we know that he put Aleister Crowley up the...
I mean, perhaps he said those things, but where's your quotes and where's your video clips on this? You said that, before he died, one of the last things he said in an interview, this interview isn't available anywhere for us to watch. There's no news articles about it where we can, those could be lying too, but at least that's more in an official source than, just some, biased guy on the internet. No evidence. We just have to believe you that this is what he said, right? Similar to like how we have to just believe, when Christians say, one of the last things that Anton LaVey said before he died was, oh no, what have I done? I made a mistake or something along those lines, which is absolute nonsense. There's actually video of, his last recorded, words, and it had nothing to do with I made a mistake. It was more along the lines of, I know I've been, away for a while, out of the public spotlight, and that's because I don't want to, come back and be thought of as just a guest for TV shows, right? Because this is obviously back in like the 80s or 90s or something like that. So I don't just want to be a guest for TV shows, but I can assure you that I'm here and Satanism is here to stay. That's what his last recorded interview, words and stuff like that were. But, you just have to believe the Christians, which is weird, but okay.
Top left back row of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album, one guy over from the left in the top row, and Aleister Crowley was a full-blown Satanist, and he's saying the whole Beatle idea was to do Crowley's deal. And I think it's quite interesting when you think about this, because Sgt. Pepper, the song Sgt. Pepper taught, it's 20 years ago today, Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play. Well, that was 1967, Sgt. Pepper's. And we show that album's a concept album that goes back and forth with the Stones, their Satanic Majesty request, and they did it together. But it's interesting because 20 years before was 1947 when Aleister Crowley had died. And it's interesting because John Lennon said straight out, he said, talking about a success, he said, I made a pact with the devil.
John Lennon couldn't have made it any clearer when speaking of the Beatles' success and stating, quote, I sold my soul to the devil. Yoko Ono also made a pact with Satan.
Again, taken out of context, what if he's talking metaphorically? What if the devil is the record labels? What if the devil is the CEO or, whatever of the label that he was signed to? And they're just like we hear from artists today, right? The labels make you do all kinds of things that you don't want to do. What if he, is being told you have to go do these interviews, you got to go over here for a photo shoot, you got to go fly over to this country and, speak to this magazine, you got to go have dinner with the, the president of this company or country, or the CEO of this company, and, blah, blah, blah. What if he meant it metaphorically, right? Not literally, right? He gave, interestingly enough, they gave the book and the page number. So, someone should buy that book or find a PDF. Find a EPUB or a PDF, or I'm trying to think of other ebook formats. But I think Mobi or something like that. I don't know. I know EPUB is the one that most Kindles and ebooks and stuff like that use, but someone should find one of those and go to that page and get the full context, because I really do wonder what the context was, like what was said before that, what was said after that, right? Read the paragraph or two before that, maybe even a page before that statement. I don't know, but let's continue here.
For Lennon and herself not long before Lennon's death. Albert Goldman reported in his book, The Lives of John Lennon, quote, finally it was time to consummate all these spells by making a living sacrifice and signing a pact with the devil. For Lena was not a white witch. She was the real thing, a practitioner of black magic. There was no knowing what she planned to do to seal the bond.
So this isn't from her. This is so just like with the Elvis thing, we don't have anything from Elvis himself. This is just other people saying, and even though those people were with Elvis, blah, 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 his bodyguards, blah, 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 Elvis isn't around to say, hey, I didn't say those things, or that was or yes, I said it, but it was taken out of context. I meant it in this way, or whatever, right? So I don't know, but same thing with Yoko Ono here. And also, this is the woman who there's a video of her at some museum or something like that, where she did a artistic performance or whatever, where she literally just stood in the center of the museum or something like that and just wailed, just screamed into the microphone, like she was having a seizure or something like that. She was like It was the craziest thing. We're supposed to believe that she actually, practices some legitimate form of witchcraft. So, you know what? Let's keep going.
With Lucifer. All she would say was that a witch's moon was nigh and they had to make ready for the sacrifice. Lenon said, quote, "We've got to make a sacrifice with the blood of an innocent to the one who has the power." They sacrificed an animal to Satan, and Yoko ended up paying the Satanist $60,000. The price, though, would be far more for serving Satan. It would cost John Lennon his life and his soul. John Lennon said, quote, "But my joy is when you're like possessed, like a me."
So what about all the actual witches who make it to old age? Not celebrities, right? That have, haters out there, drug addicts, they do extreme things, what about the actual occultists out there that live to old age, right? Like the modern day occultists that are out there, right? And, I'm not going to, say that all of these people are old, as in they're in their 80s and 90s, but, okay, someone like Lon Milo Duquette, right? The current, well, I don't know if he's the current head, but he was the head of the OTO, right? A successor to Crowley. Number one, none of these conspiracy theorists ever talk about him, number one. And number two, he's old, right? He didn't die young. He's old, still alive, still doing live streams. I follow him on Facebook, still doing live streams, still, doing, writing books and stuff like that. I don't know how active he is as the leader of the OTO. I'm not a Thalamite, so and I'm not a member of the OTO, but I know he's still active, and he's older. He's at least in his 60s, 70s, and he's definitely old. But people like I don't know, Steven Skinner, Silver Ravenwolf, as much as I don't like her, Anne Mora, Laurie Cabot, if she's still around. I think she's still around. What about them, right? Sure, a celebrity might die young, but real witches, real occultists are out here living till old age. So what's the theory behind that? Why doesn't the devil come and take their soul right away? Because you don't have any gold records, you don't have a platinum single, so I'll let you live forever. Stop. Come on.
Medium, I'll be sitting around and it'll come in the middle of the night or at a time when you don't want to do it. That's the exciting part. I don't know who the blank wrote it. I'm just sitting here and the whole blank song comes out. So you're like driven and you find yourself over on a piano or a guitar and you put it down because it's been given to you or whatever it is you tune into. We must be honest and ask ourselves.
Yeah, that's how good art is done. People get inspired and they just do it. Now, that happens to Christian artists too, right? Christian, musicians, painters, whatever, they just attribute that channel, that force to God. The same thing happens to them. They just feel as though they know what that inspiration is coming from. But it's the exact same thing.
Ourselves a question. When we allow ourselves to be moved by music of bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, who are we really allowing to move us?
Wow. I mean,